time to laugh and a time to cry, a time to forgive and a time to forget. Dreams we dream sometime never die. We carry them on until they become someone else's dreams. A friend of mine had such a dream. I met her at a truck stop just outside of Phoenix. We both worked there. Her dream came true, I know. The key to her dream was a little sign that read, "Giddy up, go." She was a lovely girl, pretty smile, but behind all this I could see a troubled mind. She told me when she met the guy that won her heart and made her life a joy. And before too long, more happiness came, a little baby boy. Things wasn't too bad, his job wasn't much, but somehow they got by. And then came the day he drove home a big truck, and the little boy became so overjoyed, just like when he saw his first fall of snow. He kept hollering, "Giddy up, go, Daddy, giddy up, go." Then a dark cloud moved in. A few years later, without warning, after a few visits with her doctor, he said it was just a matter of time. She knew she'd have to move to a drier climate, and this troubled her mind. So without leaving a trace, she took her son and left town one night. She settled here, and we became the closest of friends. We talked from time to time, and she'd smile, and her eyes would glow when she'd tell me about Giddy Up Go. Each time a truck would pull in, I could see her stand and stare. Wasn't long before she had to give up being a waitress here, and she moved on out of town, not too far. We visited almost every week. The boy now's almost grown. He's the image of his dad, she'd say, the most handsomest man I've ever known. The dark cloud once more moved in, and as I stood close by, once again she told her story. I could see a tear in her eye. I know my son longs for the road, and the last request she had, let him become a truck driver, like son, like dad. The boy soon left town, I never knew for where. But I find myself watching every truck that pulled in around the curve. Giddy Up Go was the only link that held between the two, and I was hoping that I could be of help. It became a dream to me too. Just now I froze in my tracks as I watched two trucks pull in, a big new shiny diesel and an old one following him. I couldn't help staring as they walked in, ordered coffee, and talked a while. Then I saw them leave, both wearing such a smile. They walked out to the old truck, brushed off some dirt so the nameplate would show. And before my eyes, a little sign that read, "Giddy up, go."
Howdy! I'm just so proud to be here. Well, sir, I'm just as proud and happy to be down here with all you fine folks, and handsome fellers, too. Now, they are. Sure enough, I've been looking at them. I just look. It don't do no good, but I still look. It's kind of like going down to the depot and watching the trains go by. You love to hear the whistle even if you ain't going nowhere. But I did have two nice-looking fellers kind of look at me tonight as I was walking in out there. There was two of the handsomest fellers standing there, and I looked over at them and smiled, and they looked over at me and laughed out loud. One of them said to the other, he said, "I believe that's the ugliest woman I ever seen in my life." The other one said, "Yes, she's awful ugly, but she might be a pretty good old girl. You know, beauty's only skin deep." And the other one said, "Well, let's skin her." See, I can't help the way I look. When they passed around looks, I thought they said books, and I said, give me a funny one. Well, so this other feller, he says to me, he says, now, I believe I recognize that girl. Said, that's that Minnie Pearl. Said, she's been down there at the Grand Ole Opry for 175 and a half years. He said, she carries on like she's from the country. He said, I bet she ain't from the country. He said, I bet she don't know a goose from a gander. I turned around, I said, well, at Grinder's Switch, we don't worry about that. We just put them all out there together and let them figure it out for themselves. Oh, so far we ain't had no complaints, hardly at all, you might say. Well, so though my feller, he had a fit about me coming off over here. You know, he gets worried about me when I leave Grinder's Switch and come over here to Nashville. He does. He worries. He said, one of these nights, you'll get over there around that Grand Ole Opry, and one of them fellas over there will run off with you. I wish they would. I just said that because it's so. No, he said last night he come by the house. And, oh, you know, it is so romantical. It is late. It's about 8:30, I reckon. And we was sitting there on the double settee in the front room, and I was sitting by him, and him by me, and one by each, and each by the other. We was just sitting there. Oh, it is romantical, except for one thing. We got a great big old tall grandfather clock. Stands away tall against the wall, and it ticks slow. Every time my fella comes over there to keep me company, sound like that old clock saying, take your time, take your time. I ought to get one of them fast ticking little clocks that goes, get together, get together, get together. Ain't this awful grown girl of 18 up here carrying on so silly? He said, what would you do? We're sitting there just looking at one another, just like two frogs under a collard leaf and it a-raining. He said, what would you do if you was to get off up there around where all them handsome fellers are up there in the city and run up on a bunch of one of them fast fellers, them city broke fellers that'd just kiss you at the drop of a hat? What would you do? I said, I reckon I'd be all time dropping my hat. I ain't had no trouble yet. I'm still a-hoping. Law, I ain't been kissed in so long. I forgot whether it's done but drawing in your breath or blowing it out. That's right now, sure does. They say kissing spreads germs. I sure have spent a lot of healthy evenings in my life. We had a party the other night at Grinder's Switch, where I live at, and right in the middle of it, they started playing a game where they drawed a circle in the middle of the floor, and a girl would stand in the middle of the circle, and a fella would either have to kiss her or pay a fine. I made $11.34. One old boy didn't have no money with him, said he'd pay me come Saturday. But I'd like to take you all with me to Grinder's Switch sometime. Now, I've been talking about Grinder's Switch for now on to 20 years up here at the Grand Ole Opry, and there's several folks have asked me about Grinder's Switch, and I'd just love to take you with me. We've got more going on down there than you ever seen. River runs every day, train runs once a week. Everything going on down there, it's exciting. Now, last week, Chief Jones got one of them newfangled oil stoves, and that thing blowed Chief and his old lady clean out the top of the roof. First time they've been out together since they got married. He ain't like Lem Perkins. He takes his wife with him everywhere he goes. I said to him one day, I said, Lem, you thoughty? You take your wife with you everywhere you go. He said, yeah, she's so ugly, I'd rather take her with me than to kiss her goodbye. Well, sir, we had a big party at Grinder's Switch last night, and we had the best time you ever seen. There's folks there from all over, from Shady Grove and Who'd Have Thought It, and Williamsport, and as far away as Hohenwald. And fun, we had the best time. It was all of us young folks, that is who it was. And we had such a good time. There was one girl there, though. I don't know. Now, it seemed like to me she was kind of showing off a little. Her name was Elvira O'Beery, and she's from over at Shady Grove, and she had on one of them low-cut dresses, you know. She looked like she's poured into that dress, but not fur enough. And I'll tell you that she had all them fellers just a-buzzing around her like bees buzzing around a hive. It was just embarrassing to me. I can't stand to see somebody showing off like that. Just wished it had been me is all. That's all I got to say. It is awful. Them fellers, they just carried on. And Uncle Nabob was carrying on, just shining and carrying around. And Grandpappy Bustrum, he'll be 102 come tater digging time next. He was just a-cutting a fandango and a dancing there and fell down and broke his gold walking cane his grandchildren had done give him for his birthday. He did. And I walked up to him and I said, Grandpappy, I said, you better be careful. You know, you're living on borrowed time. He said, gal, what I care if I'm living on borrowed time as long as I've got pretty girls to keep up the interest. Oh, me. Old Grandpappy's the one, you know, on his 97th birthday. Some of the fellers are sitting down around Steve Jones's store, and they's talking about if they had to die, how'd they best like to face death. And there's talking, one said he'd like to be facing the enemy, defending his country. And they got the old Grandpappy Bustrum and him, 97 years old at the time. He said the way he'd like to face death would be right then to be shot by a jealous husband. Oh, I tell you, there's life in that country down there. Just like me now. I get up and dance and carry on, you know. And I'd just like to show you now sometime, if you'll come go to a dance with me, there's life in the old dog yet, you know it? You can't look at a chassis and tell how many miles left under the hood. We was working up in Ohio one night here a while back, and there was a fella hollered out of the balcony, and he said, Minnie Pearl, why don't you sing that song that reminds me of you? And I said, what's that? He said, too old to cut the mustard. I said, you come down here on this stage and I'll show you. Last scene, he was doing a Hank Snow, Moving On. Oh, me. But, you know, Uncle Nabob's been having a little trouble with his hearing. Just got to where he can't hardly hear nothing, except what he wants to. He says it's awful convenient when Aunt Ambrosia gets to hollering at him. But sure enough, he has been having trouble with his hearing, and he went to see old Doc Payne. And Doc said, well, now, I'll tell you, Nabob, it's all them corn squeezins you've been drinking. He says, if you don't quit your corn squeezins, you're going to lose your hearing completely. Uncle Nabob says, well, I'll just keep on with the corn squeezins. I like what I'm drinking better than what I'm hearing anyway. But I know y'all be interested to know that my brother has got a new job. We have a hard time with brother. You know, brother goes looking for a job, and he considers himself lucky if he don't find one. He's a kind of an inventor. In fact, brother has invented a liquid that'll dissolve anything. No fooling, he really has. Only trouble is he can't find nothing to keep it in. He is a smart boy, you know it. But he had him a job the other day. He was helping a feller over at Centerville, Tennessee, that's right near Grinder's Switch, and he was helping him deliver papers every morning, bright and early, real early in the morning. And brother said he had to quit that job because them folks was so kind and so thoughty. They left milk in bottles everywhere he was putting out papers, and he hated to disappoint anybody, and he didn't feel like he could drink all that milk, so he had to give the job up. Like the time that he had that job down at Steve Jones's, he was sorting apples, and he'd put the bad apples in one barrel and the good apples in another. He had to quit that job. He said them decisions was killing him, just killing him. But my brother is a smart boy now. He was sitting down by the corner of the fence one day, and there was a feller went by and stopped, and he said, boy, he said, I'm lost. He said, where does that road go? Brother said, I don't know. He said, well, where does that one go? Brother said, I don't know. This feller said, well, don't you know nothing? Brother said, I know I ain't lost.
Well, sir, I had the most exciting experience I ever had in my life last week. I went to a wedding.
It won't mine, it is some feller's else's. I wish it'd have been mine. That's one wedding I'd sure like to get an invite to. But I went to that wedding, and I wish y'all could have went with me. Oh, they had flowers. They had Christmas anthems and nasturtiums and petunias and begonias. I never seen the beat all around. And they had a lady playing the organ. She was playing Meddlesome's Wedding March. Oh, I just cried and cried. Had the best time. And the bride, she come down the aisle, and she had on a white dress and white mosquito netting up and down the front of her face. I didn't see why they didn't just spray her with DDT. Her dress was awful pretty in the front, but it sagged something awful down the back. Two little young'uns had to come behind and tote it for her. She just come on in there like there wasn't nothing wrong with the hem of her dress. Seemed like somebody to notice that before she got in there. It embarrassed me. And if she'd have had to get away from there in a hurry with that long dress swinging out behind her, she'd have fell, broke her leg, they'd have had to shoot her. But she come on in there, and the groom, he was waiting for her at the halter. Well, that's what it was. It took him a little time to find it out, but that's what it was. You know, they said the bride looked stunning. Well, the groom just looked stunned. He looked like another clean-shirted dun. One more, be all he need. I felt sorry for him. You know, he is out of his mind, bound to have been. He never would have said what he did. He told that girl right there in front of all them folks that he'd give her all the worldly goods he had. He did. I heard him. He said he'd give her all his worldly goods. As Pappy was sitting by me, he said, "Uh-oh, there goes Jed's slingshot." And coming on home from that wedding was the closest that my feller ever come to proposing to me. I just tell you, it is just the most exciting thing. We was coming by the graveyard, and that there's where it like to happen, right there. We come by the graveyard, and was coming along with a horse and buggy, see? And we come by the graveyard, and my feller Hezzy, he pulled up that old horse, and we stopped there in front of that graveyard, and he looked over at the graveyard, and then he looked over at me, and he said, "Minnie Pearl," that there's my name's Minnie Pearl. That is why he called me that. He said, well, it was. I reckon it's the only reason I know of. He said, "Minnie Pearl," he said, "all my kinfolks for years back, everybody ever been kin to me, and I reckon ever will be, has been buried over in that graveyard. I hope someday to see you buried over there, too." Well, I didn't know what to say, him proposing to me like that. And then when he kissed me, and the way he kissed me, he started to tell the horse to get up, and just as he started to tell the horse to get up, he went like this, and I got in the way. He kissed me all right. I thought every hair on my head was a harp, and somebody's playing a different tune on every one of them. I've been in several weddings myself. I've been a bridesmaid. Oh, I love to be in them. I just love a wedding. The last one I was in, though, I had a little trouble about my dress. I was aiming to wear a real pretty dress. Aunt Ambrosie and Mammy was cutting it out for me, and they had the fine pattern that we've used several times for my dresses. And this one was going to have a V-neck, and Aunt Ambrosie had on a new pair of spectacles, and they give her double vision. And when she cut it out, instead of it being a V-neck, it come out a W. Well, I couldn't use that dress. I just had to get another one, you know. Aunt Ambrosie is a fine lady. She's Uncle Nabob's wife, and Uncle Nabob's one of my favorite uncles of all. He's the finest old feller. I'd love to have brung him up here with me. I would have loved for y'all to have saw him. But every time I take him somewhere, he just mortifies me to death. A little while ago, I took him up to New York with me. I had to do a show up there, and he embarrassed me so. He never had rode an elevator. And we got in that little cage, and they jammed the door shut, and we just shot right straight up, about 15 or 16 wagon greasings. Got to the top and fell around the elevator, turned around and seen Uncle Nabob look kind of pale. He said, "What's the matter, Pop? Did it scare you?" Uncle Nabob said, "No, I always wear my pants down around my ankles this way." A day or two after that, I had a little more trouble with him. I went in one of them great big department stores, and I lost Uncle Nabob. Couldn't find him nowhere. And I found him finally. He was trying to go up on a down escalator. I said, Uncle Nabob, what in the world are you trying to do, trying to go up on a down escalator? He said, leave me alone, gal. Can't you see I'm a-gaining on it?
Irene, good morning. Where did you stay last night?
Well, I went to the corner for pretzels, and somebody turned out the light.
When I woke up this morning, I found my wife was gone.
So I phoned to the nearest tavern, said, bartender, put my wife on. Irene, Irene, don't leave me, I beg on bended knee. Come home, I need that picture,
And bring some pretzels for me.
You promised me the rainbow if I'd come back to you, but some of the colors I'm missing. All you give me was black and blue.
Irene, Irene, good morning. Wake up, you're snoring too loud. You've dreamed the whole night through, dear.
Now the fields have got to be plowed.
I fell asleep last night, dear, while reading them new catalogs. I was dreaming of satins and laces till you called me to slop the hogs.
Irene, Irene, good morning. Tell me it's only a dream.
Go look into the mirror
And see what makes me scream.
You said when we got married I'd really strike it rich.
Well, didn't we get you a job, dear?
Yeah, as a brakeman at old Grinder's switch.
Irene, Irene, good morning. You swore you'd leave last night, but you're still here this morning.
and ready to start a fight. Woman, what do you mean coming in here at 3 o'clock in the morning with a pitcher full of pretzels and a handful of beer, telling me you've been to a picture show?
I'm sorry, baby, I won't do it no more. I don't do it never
Yeah,
again.
don't come singing that sad song to me. I've heard it before.
Not never again.
Oh, yes, you will. You done got a taste of it now.
Don't act so ugly and mean.
I'm sorry we ever got married. Good morning, Irene.
What is an American, anyway? Well, he yells for the government to balance the budget, then takes his last dime to make him a down payment on his car. He whips the enemy nations, then gives them the shirt off his back. He yells for speed laws that'll stop fast driving, and then won't buy a car unless it'll make 100 miles an hour. He gets scared to death if we vote $1 billion for education. But he's cool as a cucumber when he finds out we're spending $3 billion a year on tobacco. He gripes about the high price of the things he has to buy. Gripes still more about the low price of things he has to sell. He'll get mad at his wife for not running their home with the efficiency of a hotel, then get mad at the hotel for not operating like a home. He'll spend half a day looking for vitamin pills to make him live longer, then drive 90 miles an hour on slick pavement to make up for time lost. He'll fall out with his wife over her cooking, then go on a fishing trip and swallow half-fried potatoes, burnt fish, and gritty creek water coffee made in a rusty bucket and think it's good. He'll work hard on the farm so he can move into town, so he can make money, so he can move back on the farm. He's the only fella in the world who'll pay 50 cents to park while he eats a 25-cent sandwich. He likes to cuss his government, but gets fighting mad if somebody else does it. We're the folks that have more food to eat than any other place in the world, and more diets to keep us from eating it. We're the most ambitious people on earth. We run from morning till night to keep our earning power up with our yearning power. We're supposed to be the most Christian nation on earth, but still can't deliver a payroll without an armored guard. But we're pretty nice folks. Calling a citizen of the United States a real American is the best compliment you can pay him.
Well, so we had a little trouble coming in town this afternoon. We usually come in either on the train or on the bus. Except one time my feller brung me in his car. Oh, I don't like these new cars. You know, no clutch. I like the old-timey ones, you know. Plenty of clutch. My feller and me, I remember one time, my feller let me drive his car. Oh, I never will forget that. I had a funny experience here with one of these traffic cops. I like the cops here in Nashville, and they're always awful nice, except I had a little trouble with just this one. I was trying to drive the car, and I pulled up in front of one of these here lights, these here traffic lights, you know, and I stalled my engine, and I couldn't get nowheres, and finally the light changed red, and then it changed green, and then it changed red, and finally the cop, he come up to the side of the car, and he said to me, he said, "What's the matter, lady? Ain't we got no colors you like?" Oh, me. And then one time I had trouble coming up here on the bus. And I usually have an awful nice time with them bus drivers. They're real nice to me as a rule. But we was trying, all of us trying to come up here, and there was Mammy and brother and sister and Uncle Nabob and Aunt Ambrosie and Elmer and brother's old dog, Careless. And you know, that old dog, brother, he calls him Careless, 'cause he got him for a hunting dog, and he cares less about hunting than dog you ever seen. But he's a good old dog, and we was going to bring him with us. And everybody in the family got on the bus, and brother had that old Careless with a rope tied around his neck trying to pull him on the bus. The bus driver says, "Boy, the bus don't carry dogs. The dog ain't going to be able to get on the bus." Brother says, "Why, we got to have the dog on the bus. He's going with us." And I said to the bus driver, I said, "Mister, that dog is just like a member of the family." And the bus driver said, "Lady, I can see the family resemblance, but the dog still don't ride the bus." Oh, me, we've had a hard time with that old dog. Brother loves him so good. Brother got so upset over him here last year, he got one of his legs cut off. The dog did, not brother. But the dog got one of his legs cut off, and brother didn't do a thing but put him a wooden leg on now. Now that's the finest rabbit-running dog you ever seen. He not only chases the rabbits, but he catches them and clubs them to death with that wooden leg. Last Christmas, we had so many kinfolks come to see us that brother didn't have no place to sleep, so he had to go out in the barn and sleep. Next morning I said, "Brother, did you get cold out there in the barn?" Brother said, "No, I just took all my old dogs out there with me. And every time I got cold, I just pulled up another dog." That's it. Only trouble is, about that old dog Careless, is that he chases the train mighty bad. One afternoon, brother was sitting down there by the railroad track, and the train come through, and that old dog took out after the train. Fella standing there by the railroad track said to brother, said, "Does that old dog chase the train every time it comes by here?" Brother said, "Yep." He said, "Reckon what makes that dog chase the train?" Brother said, "I ain't never worried about why he chased it. I just wondered what he'd do with it if he caught it." Oh, me. We got more old animals around up there at the house. We got a cat that brother's tried to get rid of for years. One day, a couple of days ago, brother decided he'd really get rid of that cat. So he took him about a mile and a half up the road and left him and come back home. A little bit while after that, well, he looked out, the cat was sitting right there on the steps, see? Well, that made Brother so mad. So he took that old cat about 5 miles up the road and left him. Come back, a couple of hours later, that old cat was sitting right there on the doorstep. So Brother got really mad then. So he took him away off up in the woods. In fact, he took him so far away that Brother never would have found his own way back if he hadn't followed the cat.
Howdy! I'm just so proud to be here. I'm gonna sing now. Let her go, fellers. You can have my coffee, you can have my tea. Just you let my feller be. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can be. Now I like fiddle-style crowd. I get my mail on the rural route. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can be. I've got a man and a bulldog too. My man don't bite, but my bulldog do. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can be. Now I've got a dog, got the best in town. What I need's a good man to turn the damper down. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can be. Now I may be old enough in years, but I can climb a hill without changing gears. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can Now, I ain't no beauty, don't dress so fine, but you ought to see me handle that feller of mine. I'm jealous, jealous-hearted me. I'm just as jealous as I can be.
There's a time to laugh and a time to cry, a time to forgive and a time to forget. Dreams we dream sometime never die. We carry them on until they become someone else's dreams. A friend of mine had such a dream. I met her at a truck stop just outside of Phoenix. We both worked there. Her dream came true, I know. The key to her dream was a little sign that read, "Giddy up, go." She was a lovely girl, pretty smile, but behind all this I could see a troubled mind. She told me when she met the guy that won her heart and made her life a joy. And before too long, more happiness came, a little baby boy. Things wasn't too bad, his job wasn't much, but somehow they got by. And then came the day he drove home a big truck, and the little boy became so overjoyed, just like when he saw his first fall of snow. He kept hollering, "Giddy up, go, Daddy, giddy up, go." Then a dark cloud moved in. A few years later, without warning, after a few visits with her doctor, he said it was just a matter of time. She knew she'd have to move to a drier climate, and this troubled her mind. So without leaving a trace, she took her son and left town one night. She settled here, and we became the closest of friends. We'd talk from time to time, and she'd smile, and her eyes would glow when she'd tell me about Giddy Up Go. Each time a truck would pull in, I could see her stand and stare. Wasn't long before she had to give up being a waitress here, and she moved on out of town, not too far. We visited almost every week. The boy now is almost grown. He's the image of his dad, she'd say. The most handsomest man I've ever known. The dark cloud once more moved in, and as I stood close by, once again she told her story. I could see a tear in her eye. I know my son longs for the road, and the last request she had, let him become a truck driver, like son, like dad. The boy soon left town, I never knew for where. But I find myself watching every truck that pulled in around the curve. Giddy Up Go was the only link that held between the two, and I was hoping that I could be of help. It became a dream to me too. Just now I froze in my tracks as I watched two trucks pull in, a big new shiny diesel and an old one following him. I couldn't help staring as they walked in, ordered coffee, and talked a while. Then I saw them leave, both wearing such a smile. They walked out to the old truck, brushed off some dirt so the nameplate would show. And before my eyes, a little sign that read, Giddy Up